CMPRadio.net, it's the station. Listen, man, let's cultivate together. Bring us all your show ideas. Content creators, we're looking for that. Videographers, we're looking for that. You can be a part of the next great big thing that takes place right here in Chester, Pennsylvania. Let's cultivate together, man.
CMPRadio.net, it's the station.
Hello everyone, my name is Tinu, and I'm running for judge out in media for the Court of Common Pleas. So please come vote November 2nd.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Uncle P, man, and I have the pleasure of sitting here and talking with Ms. Tinu Moss, and she's running for the Court of Common Pleas out in media, right? November 2nd is the election. It's important that we come out and we vote. How you doing, Mr. Newman?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for inviting us into your office, man. It's been a pleasure sitting here talking to you about the election process and the ups and the downs and that. What got you interested in running to be a judge?
To be honest with you, the political process has always been a little bit daunting, a little bit scary, and I never thought in a million years that this is something that I would do. But just like anyone, sometimes you need that encouragement from your family. And I'm very fortunate enough to have an amazing husband who has been involved in politics for quite some time, who knew that being judge was a dream of mine. My grandfather was a judge in Nigeria. And so he was like, if this is something you want to do, I can help you do that. And I was like, I know if I have him in my corner, I can do just about anything. So I said, let's do this. I've been practicing for law for quite some time now. I've had finance backgrounds. I actually majored in environmental science and policy in undergrad, so not too far from the spectrum of things that I've practiced or at least been educated on. But being a judge would just be a dream of mine, but it also gives me ability to not just talk about it, but do something about it as well. So now if I become a judge out in media, I'll be on the other side of that bench. I would be that person responsible for making sure that a lot of the things that I may have disagreed with as it pertains to the law, I get to add my perspective and a different perspective that I represent a different community. And I'd be bringing all of that perspective, all of my education, all of my experiences, the conversations that I've had with people such as the members of Labor's Local 413 in Chester. I get to bring that wealth of information, knowledge, and experience with me to the bench. So when their issues are presented to me, I have a different perspective on how the law should apply to those set of circumstances. And that's a different perspective, perhaps, than some people currently have on the bench. It's not a bad thing. It's just a different perspective.
Right. So when you mentioned a different perspective, right? Because we already have a female judge, African-American female judge. She was the first ever, right, elected, Ms. Nasra Rashid. You're going to be, if you win, right, the second, right? So how does that perspective, how does that feel to you to know that you hold a lot of weight on your shoulders?
It doesn't feel like a lot of weight.
Okay.
You know what feels like more weight to me? Representing my clients who are coming before people who might not share the same values and perspectives, and overcoming that person's lack of information and knowledge and experience, and trying to get them to come down and meet us where we're at. That's harder than me being on the bench and already having some idea of what the person before me is currently experiencing and going through.
How were you introduced to the field of law, and what drove you to pursue it?
I would like to say, as a child, I always wanted to do that, but that's not true. I think life drove me to wanting to do that. Watching the news, seeing what's going on in our community, seeing what's going on in the world, and wishing I could do more about it. And going into law was the way I felt was best. I was best able to address some of those issues. Graduating, starting to practice in a community and serve certain segments of the community was my best way to start seeing some of that change that I wanted to see when I was watching the news. And as we were discussing prior, let's not complain about it. Let's do something about it. And this is my effort at doing something about it.
What are your plans to bring impartiality to the bench?
I don't have any real plans to bring, we can't come in with a preset plan. What I know I can do is bring in, again, my values, my experiences, my perspective. I can bring all those clients that I've represented with me when I come to the bench. And when you're fortunate enough to have clients that have run the spectrum from senior citizens to juveniles to our middle-aged clients, some who are going through divorces, some who are going through custody, some who are suffering from child support. And I can't even mention the number of cases or individuals who've called my office who couldn't afford an attorney. And they've reached out to me and said, thank you so much for taking me hours to walk me through this process, to allow me to handle these matters on my own. A lot of attorneys aren't gonna do that. But again, I'm very blessed to say, you know what? I'm not trying to be wealthy here. I'm just trying to make sure that when I go to sleep at night, I can rest well.
Right.
I'm very comfortable. And for the most part, everything I do, because I always know that I was as fair as I could be, as honest as I could be, and I've always given my best. So as far as being impartial on the bench, I don't have any goals or achievements or anything I'm looking to do after getting on the bench. I'm not trying to set up any group of people, and I'm not trying to say anyone else who's going on the bench has had that goal in mind. What I'm saying is that I know what it feels like sometimes to feel disadvantaged, to feel judged, to feel ignored. And I know if I'm fortunate enough to get on that bench, that there's no one who's gonna come before me who's gonna feel like they were not heard or not understood.
What are your ideas of how the court system can make strides towards being more accessible and fair for everyone, particularly marginalized residents?
That is a sort of double-edged sword. I will try to get as close to answering that question as possible without entering into politics. I do believe that the judicial system should be balanced. And what I mean is we should make sure that people who cannot afford private attorneys feel that when they're using our public defender's office, that they're getting the same quality services as they are if they were a victim and being represented by the DA's office. So making sure that we have equal resources between all attorneys representing the common law, I think is one way to make sure that people who are marginalized are getting services that they're comfortable in. But then in addition to that, going back to some of the earlier statements about having clients or even individuals who I know can't afford me, working with them. Just yesterday I was instructing a young lady who was interested in doing divorce how to go online. Delaware County has quite a bit of forms that allow people to start handling a lot of these things on their own, from custody support and divorce. I wish that website was just a little bit user-friendly, to be honest with you. So it will take some time for someone to navigate it, and that would be one of the things that I would ask, is that maybe we have a revamping of our public access system so people know that this information is readily available to them, or at least these resources are available to them. And then maybe, and they do a great job of making these forms somewhat easy to complete. But that would be one of the things, making the courts more accessible to the public, and the best way to do that is start making a lot of the forms, self-represented forms, a little bit easier to find. I know at one point, probably from a cost perspective, those forms were available in the courthouse. And maybe because of the cost of paper, they've since then been removed, and they were probably holding up the lines, and so they've made a lot of people go online to do them. But unfortunately, there's members of my community who don't have access to the internet, who don't have access to computers, so that in effect disenfranchised them. So I've been able to, there's no way I'll know who this has impacted across the board, but I do know I've personally printed out forms or charged someone something extremely minimal. And all I did was plug in the information and use the basic form and handed it to them. So I may have charged some people about $50, and that was just the time to plug in the information. I didn't use my fancy form, but I used a form that still allowed them to proceed, and that way it was something that was cost effective for them, and then they were able to proceed on with their own. But at least they didn't have to worry about getting over that hump of that technology hump.
What are some of your core reasons why you're running for the Court of Common Pleas?
I think we addressed quite a bit of them at this point. It is to make the bench look like Delaware County. And politics aside, when you have a bench of 21 judges and they all happen to have maybe similar backgrounds, that's not representative of Delaware County. And then when you have a bench of primarily men, not representative of Delaware County, primarily non-minority, not representative of Delaware County, primarily Republican, not representative. And so with that, adding of diversity, which I would bring to the bench, again, comes different values. I'm Nigerian. I would love for the immigrant population, Chinese, Asian, African, Latino, Latina, to feel comfortable knowing that Delaware County is moving in the right direction, that Delaware County finds diversity an issue and wants to address it, that Delaware County is excited about having the events look like the melting pot that Delaware County is. And so I'm hoping, again, should I be fortunate enough to come November 2nd to get on that bench, that I get to bring all of that wealth of information and my community with me, and I also get to judge in a manner that's fair, impartial, and compassionate.
Absolutely. What would it mean for you to win this election and become the only, not the only, but become the second Black woman ever to serve on a Delaware County's bench?
I'm not looking at it like that. To me, this is another job interview. Most people don't get interviewed by the public.
Right.
Most people don't get scrutinized on a public basis. I've never once considered, oh, I'm the second. I would be the second. That doesn't matter to me. I would look at it, yes, I get an opportunity to now address all of those little issues that I had a problem with for the last 10 plus years that I've been in Delaware County not practicing law. Just as a side note, one of the things that annoyed me the most, and I just got it the other day, is when I went into Delaware County, when I first started practicing, and I had a suit on, and my briefcase, and I'd introduced myself to the clerk, and they would still think that I was there as someone's parent, not an attorney. And someone just asked me the other day, I think I was in district court, I'm not gonna say where, and they assumed that I was the defendant and not the attorney. And I think it was not intentional, so to speak, because it wasn't that they thought I was an attorney because they were not a minority. In some occasions they were not minority, in some occasions they were a minority. But they're not used to seeing many African American attorneys, I guess. And they most certainly aren't used to seeing many African American judges. And so that's what I would like to achieve, the visibility aspect. That there are people of diverse appearances, of diverse backgrounds, who are qualified and who want to be great public servants. And on November 2nd, hopefully you guys will elect another great public servant who happens to look like you and who happens to be also bringing that perspective. So the next time someone coming behind me comes before a judge, or a clerk staff, you're not assuming she's the victim or she's the client instead of the judge or the attorney. That's what I want to achieve.
What advice do you have for any person, particularly young African Americans, who are planning or thinking about entering the field of law?
Network. And don't be scared to network. That was the hardest and is the hardest thing for me. I've been asked to attend certain functions and I turned them down, even recently. Because it's intimidating to go and mingle with maybe a crowd where you stand out. And if I'm fortunate enough to get on the bench, myself and Nusret will still be in a crowd that doesn't look like us. But we've gotten to a certain point and a certain age, somewhat, where it's a little less intimidating. But in my youth, I wish I was a little bit more adventurous. And putting myself out there in those awkward situations. So even though we're talking about networking, it's very important in the legal community, because as minorities, there's still not many of us. I'm quite sure the community of Chester and whoever else is watching this, you can count on maybe one hand, maybe two, how many attorneys look like us. And then clearly the bench is indicative of how many attorneys who practice in Delaware County actually look like us. So my advice would be to network, reach out and find other minority attorneys, ask them for their advice. One of my things is when I was working in Center City, I did something called document review, and it wasn't that involved. It's from a legal perspective. It was tedious. It just wasn't that involved. And so I had the fortune of communicating with another African American attorney, and after our business was done, I was prepared to get off the phone, and he was like, "No, what are you doing?" And I explained to him what I was doing. But I always wanted to transition out of document review, but it's very hard to go into another field if you don't have someone to assist you with that. Because all of us aren't going to be able to work for those big law firms. So this attorney asked me what was I doing, and I said, "Look, I would love to start learning different areas. You don't have to pay me." I was making more than enough at document review, and I had no kids. And that was our setup. He gave me the opportunity to learn different areas of law, and he didn't have to worry about paying me. I was very blessed with just supporting myself and having enough income that I did not need anymore. To me, I wasn't a millionaire, but I was okay. And so I now get to run for judge because I networked. And because I believe I was creative. And that's what you're going to have to do as a minority until we start seeing a shift in the admissions into law school, until we start seeing a shift into how many of us pass the bar, and until we see a shift into how many of us start working in communities that may be marginalized or underserved, and then start running for office, such as myself.
Absolutely.
So there's a path. We're sort of blazing it or clearing it, but nowhere near the level of our colleagues right now. So again, they're going to have to network, they're going to have to buckle down, and they're going to have to get creative.
Yeah, absolutely. For the last, I think for the last 12 years, or maybe 12 years, we've seen a jump in people wanting to run, people of color caring about where they come from and understanding. Where do you think that energy has been coming from?
We've had some things happen recently that have sparked an interest in people wanting to look outside of themselves, both black and white, Asian, Hispanic. That has made us recognize as a society that beating down on a group of people is not going to bring you up. And so I believe that we've seen this revitalization in our youth, the start being more extrovert. But it's not all about you sometimes. And so maybe that's the reason why we're seeing an increase in individuals interested in running for office, because they actually do want to make a change. They actually want to see that change. They want to be a part of that change. And even if they're not the person running for office, maybe they can be the support system behind that through donations, through volunteering, through holding events, through holding rallies, marches, whatever the case may be. Letting people know, hey, I may not be the one running for Senate, but I just organized this march. And what I have is 1,000 foot soldiers behind me. So if you want to reach out to me, I can bring those foot soldiers for you and help you get out the vote. My foot soldiers is Local 413.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine a better set of foot soldiers. And they do it because they like me, some love me, some want to support me, some want to support the idea and the notion of seeing people from our community being propelled forward, and even if it's not them, they want to be a part of that force propelling that person forward. So I believe a part of that is seeing that it can actually happen if we support these individuals to do so. And so as people say, we're woke.
I want you to think about the people of this community, right? And the fact that we might only get 2,000 people out to vote. And I want you to talk to them, right? And tell them, number one, why they should vote for you, why they should come out and vote, and also how important it is for a community, right? A community so rich as Chester, Pennsylvania, 34,000 people, what that power can then translate to if we come out and vote. If we get 30,000 people to come out and vote in an election, what that power then does for the city of Chester. Can you do that?
I can try my best.
Okay.
I'm not going to focus on why they should vote for me.
Okay.
Let's just focus on voting.
Okay.
As I explained to you beforehand, I reached out to you because I don't know how to reach the people of this community. Other areas in Delaware County vote. They vote, they come out, and then their schools aren't suffering.
Right.
Then they have public youth leagues. They actually have pools that are funded. They actually have basketball courts with nets and blacktop. They actually have no potholes in their community. They actually have development. They have new schools with technology. That's what your vote does. Voting for me, I'm just a small part of that. Voting for people like your county council, important. You want to know where all that money from the federal government that makes its allotment and makes its way down to the states, and then the states are tasked with where to send that money to, and you wonder why it's being sent to this area and that area, because that area votes, and that area votes. And they don't care, perhaps, about this area down here. Because though you may complain, you're not going to vote. So, all of the blight you may see, oh, that may be unattractive for this area here or that area there. But they don't come down here. So, if you don't care enough about how your community looks and how your community grows, then why should they? And the only way to make them concerned about how your community looks is to make them concerned about their jobs, make them concerned about their paychecks, make them concerned about not being able to send their kids perhaps private school, or go to those perhaps golf clubs, or go to those private swim clubs. Make people concerned about their money, then they'll start being concerned about the money you receive. But the only way people hear that fear and know that fear is if you vote. So this is not about me. I'm hoping that I've communicated with enough of this community in Delaware County. I've been out here for 45 years. I've been and I'm 45. I've been very blessed to have a mother who sacrificed and made sure that we traveled. So I got to go to Nigeria, and we were there for a month. I've been to Nigeria about 3 times now. My mother, on our way back from Nigeria when I was 12, she took us to London, and then we came home. And I've been to different portions of this country. I say all that to say that that's not everyone's experience. And so, with my background and my education and my activity in the community, I'm a member of my church in Derby. I'm on the board of the Pennsylvania Institute of Technology here in media. I'm proud enough to be on the board of something called the Black Brain Campaign. I've been a Yaden Democratic Committee member for about 10 plus years. I was its former borough manager. I try to stay involved. My mother started the local NAACP in Yaden and was the president for 20 years. My mother always had us involved. I say all that to say that I believe I bring enough diversity to the bench, enough education, enough experience, and I've communicated that well. Do I want people in Chester to come out and vote for me? Absolutely. Why? Because that vote would mean so much to me. That vote is the vote that says the people who look like me also want to see me propel forward. And I'm so blessed to have so many diverse supporters. But I want Chester. I want Chester. My office is here. I represented Laborers Local 413. And before I went to law school, sorry about that, guys, I'm turn it off. When I went to law school, I was the secretary for Local 413. And I'll never forget that experience there. So my heart is here. My heart is in Yaden. My heart is in Delaware County. But as far as voting is concerned, that took a small little tangent. I believe I have the support to propel me to that bench. But beyond me is your children, your community, your tax dollars. No matter what, you pay taxes whether you vote or not. And your tax dollars go into this pot. And they should somewhat make its way back here. And not be a laptop for some other child. Or the school uniforms for some other child. Or their playground equipment. I was told recently about the Chester, are you guys the Panthers? Your football team?
Yep, Chester
Panthers. Congratulations.
Chester Township Cougars, I love Chester children.
All Chester children.
Right.
But in particular, Chester Panthers, that's the high school, right?
No, that's the Chester High, the Clippers.
The Clippers, thank you, Clippers.
Clippers.
I was just recently told about their locker room. Why?
I've been talking about tearing down building up the A field, building up
Chester.
the locker room. Right.
Chester, you guys are an amazing group of people. You have a bond that can't be broken. You guys will come to defense of any Chester person. And that's a community spirit that you do not see often.
We're all family.
You are all family. And you treat each other like you're all
Yes, we
family.
do.
And I need this family to consider supporting me.
Right.
I need this family to consider supporting themselves and each other. And I need this family to get up and vote. No matter who you vote for, vote. Let people be scared of your 30,000 votes. And let's do some math. You're the only city in Delaware County.
Right.
Your 30,000 votes wipe out Yaden, wipe out Lansing, wipe out Derby, wipe out Alden, wipe out Swarthmore. Do you get where I'm going?
Right. Right.
You know who they're going to start paying attention to when that 30,000 votes, that block actually start to vote, and you guys get together and galvanize? It'd be Upper Derby and then Chester. Maybe you won't have to worry about your locker room or your field or your desk or your books. I need you to vote. Chester needs you to vote. You need you to vote and to care.
Absolutely.
And if you guys don't, no one else is going to. And then you're going to continue to be in this awful cycle.
I want to thank Mr. Tinu Moss for sitting down with us, man, for calling me on the phone and saying, listen, I want CMP to come here and interview me, man. It's delightful to hear someone running that cares so much for the things that we struggle with daily. You don't see those things too often, right? So, Chester, man, we're asking you November 2nd, right, to come out in the greatest form you possibly can and vote. That's your voice. Like, literally. Like, we have people that believe, I'm not voting, the system is rigged. That's a lie. It's a rumor that was whispered into your ear from somebody that wants you to be powerless. They don't want you to use your voice to change anything. They want to tell you that your vote doesn't count, but their vote does. It's the same thing. You're going in there and writing down names and hidden boxes. It's simple. It's easy. So November 2nd, I want you to come out. I want you to vote. I want you to get up. I want you to come out, and I want you to vote. I want you to bring your children out and show them how important it is for them to vote. My grandmother took me, right? And I'll never forget that day, right? So, Chester, stand up, man. But you already know it's your boy, Uncle P, man. I want to thank Mr. Tinu Moss again for inviting us up here, interviewing with us. Is there anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, again, I think you said enough. Hopefully you guys will come out November 2nd and you'll vote for me and my amazing running mates as well. Deb Kroll, Richard Womack, Kevin Madden, Rachel Lizelle Berry, Joanne Phillips, Jerry Saunders, and I think I may have hit all 7 of us. But hopefully you guys will again come out and vote. Bring your family, bring your friends again, and then even after me, please come out and vote. Please, if you don't believe me, there's a reason why in Georgia they won't allow you to hand out water anymore. There's a reason why in Delaware County they've taken up a lot of those drop-off mail-in ballots because they don't want you to vote. So if you don't think your vote matters, trust me when I say there's other people who know it does, and there's other groups of people in this world who are making sure they limit your access to vote because they know the power of your vote. And so you may not see change immediately. That's impossible. But I promise you, you will see change if you come out and vote. So even outside of November 2nd, we have other races coming up behind us. You guys will have a chance to slowly see that change manifest itself. We have other judicial races coming behind us. We have gubernatorial races that are coming behind us. Your vote is going to matter. And it's going to matter more now than ever for the next few years to come. And that's why Trump stacked the Supreme Court, because judges matter, courts matter. And Chester, more than anything, you matter. Despite whatever anyone has told you before, despite whatever you've heard before, Chester matters. I know Chester matters, and that's why I'm so thankful that you have come out and allowed me to speak with you today and share a little bit more about myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you already know how I end everything, man. I love y'all. I want y'all to make sure y'all love on purpose, right? And without any regrets, right? Tell somebody you love them, man. It's CMPRadio.net. It's your boy, Uncle P, man. We're out of here. Peace.
Cultivating mature positivity. CMPRadio.net.